All right, class, here we go. And we talk about the lot sizing again, but now we're talking about right quantity. More specifically, we're going to talk about the different techniques for establishing lot sizing. And then we're going to talk about safety stock in the context of purchasing and inventory management. So let's start with the techniques. We're going to go through a few of them. We're going to go through economic order quantity, fixed order quantity, lot for lot, and so on. Let's start with economic order quantity. Now, I have also included a video on how to calculate economic order quantity. There's math involved, and this is one of my favorite videos. The guy goes through some examples. I think it's helpful to hear from different people as you're learning, and so go ahead and watch that video as well. That is part of your weekly assignment, but also read in your book. So depending on your learning style, following through, we have some calculations in the activities this week. Okay, so it's not scary. I'm just preemptively telling you that there's math involved here. So what economic order quantity really does is it helps us determine what is the ideal quantity to purchase based on some cost factors. It's looking at inventory ordering costs and inventory costs, as well as the assumption that we know those things and we know how many we're going to use, that demand, the need. The demand must be known and constant. What I mean by that is, not that you're using a little bit every day, but it's consistent enough to where it's repeatable. Meaning, maybe I use 50 this week, 50 next week, 75 the week after that. There may be a little fluctuation, but it's being used continually. It's not something that you would buy and spend one month using and then not the rest of the month, rest of the year. So how this works is you have to be able to know that stuff, but you also must be able to get your order or your replenishment request from your supplier all at once. Getting partials will not help you here. And the reason is you're saying this is the amount that is ideal for us to hold and manage. If you're getting partials, you could run out. So that doesn't help with your supply continuity. The next slide has a visual representation of what I'm talking about, where ordering costs and carrying costs meet is that economic order quantity. So in this case, the line with the squares as the nodes of this line is carrying cost. So as you have an order quantity that increases, in this case from 200 up to 1,000, the cost of holding that inventory will increase. That's why that line increases, the cost in dollars. Whereas the ordering costs, the more you order, the less it actually costs per unit to place that order. So if it costs you $10 to place an order and you buy 200, it's going to cost you $20 per item that you're ordering. Whereas you do 1,000, you're saving a bunch of money there. So where those two lines meet, or the bottoming out of that total cost curve, is the economic order quantity you should buy. In this example, it would be 400. That would be your economic order quantity based on these cost factors. So anytime the ordering cost or carrying cost or unit cost change, this quantity will need to be updated. Now, another technique is the fixed order quantity. It is either stipulated by the supplier themselves. Economic order quantity can be considered a fixed order quantity in all due respects if that's what you're going to order every time. It could be a reason for you don't have enough space for something. You know, at one point I was buying product that in box sizes because that's what it was used on the shop floor, and that's the quantity that they needed. So it was dictated by the line replenishment needs and sizing of the space. What helps is that the supplier will get consistent orders in the same quantity. So you'll get 100 today, 100 tomorrow, and so on. This quantity can be determined in an informal way. Like sometimes you can just make it up. Now I'm never going to advocate that, but it's an informal way of determining it or calculated, like the economic order quantity. The thing is, it's so simple that literally anybody can do it. And we do it as consumers every day. When you're determining, oh, I need to buy 2 of these or 3 of these. And if you've ever shopped with someone else, you'll realize that their lot sizing technique may be a little bit different than yours. The thing is, the fixed order quantity lot sizing technique means every time you order, you buy that many. And I use that example of my husband in the toilet paper buying a 4-pack every time he went to the store. That was his fixed order quantity. Not good. It built up our inventory pretty quick. And that's one of the temptations that can happen here with fixed order quantity, is that inventory tends to increase because you may not be consuming it as quickly as you think you are, in the case of the toilet paper, or because it's reasonably cheap, in case of hunch buy a bunch, which is not a real great way of managing your money if you think about it. But it's fixed order quantity is a viable and completely necessary means of determining lot size in certain circumstances. Okay. Another one is lot for lot. Now, lot for lot is the leanest, meanest way to replace things. And it's the idea that you only replace with what you have used. So, and we do this already in our world, unless you've got an endless amount of supply of cash. We do this already for expensive things. I broke my phone, I get another phone. My car broke down, it's no longer repairable, I need to replace it with another one. Things like that. This is really great in operating a business as well for expensive or perishable things. There's no sense in tying up your cash in things that could potentially perish and not be used, and things that are expensive. You're going to need to use that cash elsewhere. So the quantity will change as the requirements change. It's, like I mentioned, the leanest, meanest way of doing it. Thing is, though, for suppliers to get on board with a lot for lot replacement, meaning if I use one, you give me one. You got to fix your pricing to where it doesn't fluctuate every time you buy. You got suppliers that will need to be on board with doing some sort of replenishment like this. Suppliers tend to find things easier to work with when they have fixed order quantities or standard lot sizes of that nature. So it's a great way to reduce inventory in general, inventory levels. Another technique is ordering N periods of supply. Notice the letter N is italicized. That means you would replace that with a number. So it could be 1 month supply, which would be 1 period, 1 month, 1 week, 6 months, whatever the case may be. Now, the quantity that is being purchased will fluctuate based on the needs for that month. Now, you could buy a week's worth of milk. Maybe that's in your family, it's 1 carton. In mine, it's 2. That kind of thing that you're planning for a period of time until you next go back to place an order. So the quantity varies. This is used for stuff that is inexpensive, not perishable, and so on. There's this idea that if you time it right, you're not going to have inventory buildup. In fact, you'll be just running out when that desired period of time has ended. So if you do it right, you shouldn't have an extra carton laying around, in my household anyway, a carton of milk. Another method is period order quantity. So you actually stipulate that you're going to order 6 months worth every 2 months. And you're going to 6 months worth, so it's forecasted out how much you're going to order in 6 months, but you're going to ask for material at 2-month marks. That makes a little more sense. What it does is it consolidates demand and allows you to get pricing discounts and so on. Usually starts with the economic order quantity calculation to figure out what would be the best cost. You may say that the economic order quantity is 200. Well, you need, just for example purposes, see the economic quantity is 200 and you use 200 every 6 months. So you can say, all right, well, I'll order every 6 months quantity of 200. Anytime there's a factor changes that affect and change the economic order quantity, you'll have to reevaluate the period of time in which you place those orders. So that's the lot sizing techniques in general. Comparing them, they are all equally important and equally used. In fact, most organizations use more than one technique in how they buy. It doesn't make sense to have just one way of doing things for many reasons. The cost of the goods, the inventory holding costs, all kinds of space issues, low value and expense items, it could change. So there's more than one way of doing it. The key is to understand which technique works best for the needs of your organization through that organization alignment. So with economic order quantity, you can have the ability to respond to demand, but demand is going to lag, meaning since you only review it, I have my team review it every quarter, you're really not going to see any significant change in the quantity, potentially, every 3 months. So there's low reactivity to daily demand changes or frequent demand changes. And as a result, you can have inventory buildup issues. So that's what that second column is, impact on inventory investment. Whereas fixed order quantity also, because it's similar to economic order quantity, have a low demand responsiveness and can build inventory. Whereas lot for lot, high demand responsiveness, you use one, you replace one, so you'll have that visibility really easily, and very low impact to inventory investment. So those are the two bookends of the extremes. In the middle, you have ordering end periods of supply or fixed period quantity ordering systems. So they're about the same in the reactivity. So with all those in mind, you got to be able to figure out what products you're purchasing, what category works best for them, and then work through to create a standard process in how you calculate, review, manage, and so on, the different lot sizing techniques. The last topic I want to cover in this presentation is safety stock. Now, safety stock, by definition, is a planned level of stock or inventory used to protect against demand and supply fluctuations. I like to think of it as your savings account of inventory. It's an intentional amount of inventory placed on hold and in your warehouse for any sort of demand and supply variation. So should there be issues with supply with your supplier, don't worry, you have some behind. You would use the same lot sizing techniques mentioned before to help determine what the right amount is or the right lot to hold. Now, there are generally three different ways to calculate the methods, and we've seen some of them already, which is end periods of supply. Maybe you have a period of time in which you're trying to cover, like a month's worth or 2 months worth. It was not uncommon for me to get feedback from leadership saying, hey, we just want you to keep 6 weeks worth of inventory on these components. Okay, well, that would be my safety stock quantity. That's a end periods of supply approach or time period method of safety stock management. Fixed amount method is a little bit harder to justify sometimes. It could be usually used on stuff that is a little more expensive or too bulky. I had only one instance in my career so far where I've had a fixed amount method where I kept only one pallet of something. And the reason was, as safety stock, because it was very, very expensive. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on one pallet. It just didn't make sense. Even though I could or should have held more, I had to work with the supplier and do some negotiation that they kept some of the stock at their location because we did not want to have that inventory investment. Now, statistical methods, they're trying to figure out the service level and the amount of inventory you need to hold and fluctuation of demand needs usually applies to goods that are finished, meaning they're sellable to the customer, not generally on component side. So I'm not going to cover it in great detail here, but it needs to be mentioned because it is a method for calculating safety stock. So safety stock is a good thing. It's your insurance policy to demand and supply fluctuations. So just to make sure we covered it all, we have the different lot sizing techniques. And if you have any questions on these or you want examples, please reach out to me. I'd really like to make sure we understand the different needs for these techniques and when they would be used. And then safety stock. We talked about how it applies in purchasing and inventory management. Think of it as your savings account. Again, if you have any questions, love to hear from you. Any points of clarification, again, reach out to me anytime. I look forward to a great week. Hope you have one as well. Have a great day.